All right, everybody, welcome to Gen X Politics. I'm Rick Amato from my home studio in Southern California. And joining me from his vacation studio while on the road, chilling out, I suppose, is co-host from St. Thomas, the Virgin Islands, Trump campaign finance manager committee member, Brian Trascher. Brian, good to see you again.
Hey, man.
So, I would imagine things are very chill, relaxing with you these days, being in the Virgin Islands.
I feel like I got chased out of my own state with a mask mandate, and they're being real careful here in the Virgin Islands, and everybody's trying to pitch in and do what's best for public health, but it's not quite as draconian. So I feel a little more comfortable with my island peeps here than I do with my Cajun peeps back home. But I'll be home eventually, at least by the time football season starts.
All right, that's a whole different story there, the NFL. What's great about this show, Brian, and having you part of it is you give us an insider's look, perspective of the campaign trail. We see some big changes coming that have just occurred. One being that Trump once again has changed campaign managers. What's your take on that?
That's a tough one. When I first got to know the president, he was still just a businessman and a reality show star. But I knew back then that he kind of fired people like it was a bodily function. But I want to clarify that Brad Parscale, who's did an amazing job as campaign manager, was not fired. I think that we're getting down to the nitty gritty, the last 110 days or so of the campaign, and the most important thing is going to be the data and making sure that the president's base gets out. And that's what Brad did in 2016, and that's what he excels at.
Right.
That's what he's a genius at. And I think the president doesn't want him to have any extra distractions like the Tulsa rally or other things like that. Let him focus on doing what he does best. He brought in a campaign veteran to kind of steady the ship. But if you remember.
Wait, are you
changed campaign manager a couple times?
Wait, are you saying that Brad Parscale's still with the campaign?
Oh yeah, no, he's definitely with the campaign. Yeah, he was always in charge of the data operation, but he was also campaign manager. Now he's squarely focused on data campaign, data and digital and data, and the day-to-day management of the campaign has been turned over to somebody else. He is still very much with the campaign, very much a valued part of this team.
Okay, yeah, and you're right. His strength in 2016 was getting that base out to the polls to vote for the president, and if he can deliver as he did in 2016, that would, that would be huge.
This joke with Brad, he looks more like an MMA fighter, really in numbers.
Oh, I know. Yeah. I never heard anyone say that, but every time I see a picture of him, I have to look twice. Is this guy a campaign manager?
Yeah, it's something else.
What's going on with the RNC convention?
Well, funny you should ask. As we're taping this today, we've gotten some guidance that there's going to be some changes to the programming and the attendance policy of the convention. As you know, the convention was moved from Charlotte, North Carolina to Jacksonville, or they're calling it the celebration. But for the first 3 days of the convention, it's going to be delegates only, no guests, no spouses, or anything else. And then the final night, the president's going to do his acceptance of the nomination and a very large speech. More than likely, that'll be an outdoor event, and they're going to allow alternate delegates as well as their guests and spouses, things like that, to come. And that's probably why the campaign it's kind of a moving target. I should say the convention is kind of a moving target as far as events being held indoors and outdoors, and I expect those things to keep changing all the way up until the week of the convention. But the bottom line is that the convention planners are working with Governor DeSantis and his staff and local public and health officials there in Jacksonville area to make sure that they follow their guidelines. Florida has had to change its guidelines in the last few weeks, and so we're just having to adapt with the time.
Yeah.
Just 2020. Welcome to 2020.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens. The other thing I think it's a lot of people's minds is these polling numbers. We keep seeing polling numbers of Biden going through the roof, President Trump going through the floor. Then you hear stories. Well, Republican voters were under. They weren't. They were
Understand?
undersampled. That's the word I was looking for. Your take on these polling numbers?
Well, they did it 4 years ago, and that's why the pollsters were all shocked and got it all wrong. It's because they were undersampling Republicans. 4 years ago, the pollsters were assuming that let's just take the African American demographic, that they were going to come out in as big numbers for Hillary Clinton as they did for Barack Obama. That was not a good look. Okay, it didn't happen. And as a matter of fact, Hillary Clinton got less participation from African Americans than even Democrat candidates before Barack Obama, like Bill Clinton. So once again, the last few polls that have come out, you have like Quinnipiac and NBC and maybe one other one. Republicans are sampled around 24%. Well, look, 4 years ago they voted 33%. So the least they could do is assume that they're going to vote in somewhere similar to the numbers that they did before. Let's just look. We talked about this in the last show, Rick. The enthusiasm gap. President Trump's, people that say they're going to vote for President Trump are at like 62%, very enthusiastic about voting for him. People that say they're going to vote for Joe Biden, it's more like 31%. Joe Biden's votes are all coming from anti-Trump.
Yeah.
There's nobody excited about voting for Joe Biden.
Yeah, I agree. They're
including Joe Biden.
and we see Biden move far to the left here. He's like a puppet of the far left Democrat movement. You think you think that sells with, mainstream?
It doesn't even sell with the Democrat base. There's a lot of, moderate Democrats who may or may not vote for President Trump, but they are not voting for Joe Biden simply because they feel like he's a Trojan horse, really, for Bernie Sanders-like socialist policies. It's just kind of crazy. Just today, and again, I know we're tape delayed, but today it was announced that Democrats were going to have a virtual convention. The delegates are not going to fly in to a place, and that's exactly what the Biden campaign wants. Look, the longer they keep them in the basement, the better they think they do.
That's a great point.
Anywhere out in public, you know that, Rick. You've seen it. It's a catastrophe every time he comes.
That's a great point, Brian, that you bring up, is that this is exactly what they've wanted all along. All right, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll continue with Gen X Politics, co-hosted by Brian Trascher, who joins me out of the Virgin Islands, St. Thomas. And yours truly, back after this. All right, welcome back to Gen X Politics. I'm Rick Amato, joined by co-host Brian Trascher. He is the Trump Campaign Finance Committee committee member. All right, Brian, we were talking about the RNC convention. I want to talk about something that it's a term that you have coined, and it's a good term, Hiden Biden, and you say it's playing into the strategy here. There's some behind the news. Breaking news stories that you can inform us about right now.
Yeah, and the good thing is that the Biden campaign had some practice several months ago hiding Hunter Biden. So now they know how to hide somebody. Now they're hiding their own candidate in his basement. And every time he comes out, what a disaster it is. But yeah, as we said in the last segment, the Democrats have decided they're going to do a virtual convention. The delegates won't be there live voting. But I've heard that the Biden camp has been reaching out to Team Trump and trying to take their temperature on a virtual debate, not actually having debates where the candidates are there in person. And look,
so it's virtual debate. The the Biden campaign has approached the Trump campaign, and they want a virtual debate. Is that what you just said?
What I've heard is that they call it taking the temperature.
Yeah.
Floating an idea, not making an actual proposal. And basically, like I said, I think we may end up seeing a foregone conclusion where there's no live audience at the debate. But I don't see the Trump campaign in any way, shape, or form giving up that advantage of having the president, who's just a much bigger physical figure and more commanding on stage than Joe Biden. But also, too, who wants to let Joe Biden in a studio with teleprompters and in a earpiece, people feeding him lines? No, he needs to be live on stage, left to his own devices and his own catastrophes and his own gaffes, while the president just makes mincemeat of him. The American people need to see what a feeble old fool Joe Biden really is.
That's a big story that you broke on this show, Gen X Politics, Brian. As you said, they're taking the temperature. I can only imagine that the conversation at the Biden campaign, they knew Trump would never say yes, but you don't know until why not try, see what happens.
Well, what they're going to do, Rick, is they're going to come back and say, oh, well, they want to, they want to put everybody's health in danger, and the president's not serious about, taking this virus seriously, and all these lies that they told about it from the beginning. Does anybody even realize that President Trump was the first elected official in the United States of America to even mention COVID-19, to even mention it? But back when it all first started, coming on our radar screen, what were the Democrats doing? They were still doing
That's right.
Banning travel from China and talking about and putting together his coronavirus task force. He did all that before they even voted on impeachment. So, that story is not going to play. Joe Biden's not getting out of debating Donald Trump. That is what keeps Joe Biden's campaign team up at night, is the debate. I guarantee you they're losing sleep over that. They're going to do everything they can to try to get out of it.
Brian,
Don't be surprised if they come back and say Joe Biden has COVID and that he can't debate. Watch. I would not.
Oh, man. And as you say, the Trump campaign is open to the idea of Trump and Biden on the same stage together at the same time with no audience.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, right now they're just floating ideas. I don't think that the campaign would have a problem with that. It's probably not a good idea if things are like they are, in a couple of months. I don't think they will be. I think they'll calm down in a few weeks again. But yeah, just to be on the safe side, you don't have to have an auditorium full of people. Don't do it. And there's really no reason why there needs to be a live audience at those debates anyway. In my opinion, that's just like
I agree. I agree with you. The audience is not needed, and you got both sides shouting, trying to create an advantage for their candidate.
Well, look at it this way. They say they try to load up the audience 50-50. They always let more Democrats in than Republicans. But we already know that whoever the moderators are, they're all going to be 100% Biden anyway. So it's already going to be a stacked deck. Might as well leave the auditorium seats empty, right?
Right. What you're in the Virgin Islands? But for our viewers, you're from New Orleans. What's going on with
the North Caribbean?
The North Caribbean. What's going on with the mask mandates in Louisiana?
Well, last week the governor came out and said that the state was not going to move into the next phase, of recovery, I guess you could call it. But he added some caveats and said that it was going to be mandatory to wear masks, and also he was shutting bars down again. I mean, there's been absolutely no evidence whatsoever that this virus is only attacking bars. Okay, if you can catch it in a bar, you can catch it in Home Depot or Walmart or anywhere else that's open and allowing people to congregate and not social distance. But yeah, the mask mandate, completely unconstitutional. The mayor of Shreveport, Louisiana, had already, prior to this, he had issued a mask mandate. Somebody took him to court. A judge struck it down right away. The Attorney General of Louisiana, Jeff Landry, came out with a scathing legal opinion the other day, talking about how it was that mandate was unenforceable and likely unconstitutional. And by the way, Jeff Landry is kind of unimpeachable on this subject because he's not anti-mask. He said that he thinks it's a good idea that people should mask up, and he himself just got diagnosed with coronavirus. He was just basically just reciting the law, saying this is not constitutional and it's not enforceable. So it's just ridiculous.
Okay. Well, Brian, it's good stuff. Breaking news story, and give us that inside perspective. One final question, and we're down less than a minute. You're from New Orleans. How's Drew Brees being received there?
Well, look, Drew Brees had a rough, PR debacle. It really wasn't of his own doing. It wasn't his fault. He was just stating an opinion, and the cancel culture went after him. and some scumbags like Malcolm Jenkins jumped in and started a Twitter war and recruited some of the younger, more impressionable players on the team to kind of join in the chorus. Forced Drew, and I don't know this to be a fact, but I heard that basically the front office, told Drew, look, you got 1 year left. If you want to play and get paid for that final year, you're going to have to come out and
Wow.
which he did. And I know a couple of the players that he's close to have come back and said, well, it was an emotional time. We might have overreacted, but nevertheless, we love Drew. We forgive him, blah, blah, blah. And that's all fine and good. But Malcolm Jenkins has been a disease in every single locker room he's ever been in, all the way back to his college days. Really not looking forward to seeing that guy in an NFL uniform too much longer.
All right. All right, Brian Trascher, that's it for today. We thank you for joining us, and make sure you hit the beach there in St. Thomas.
You got it. Will do.
All right. This is Gen X Politics for Brian Trascher. I'm Rick Amato. Thank you for joining us.